Welcome to FMH Insurecast, a podcast created by Farmers Mutual Hail designed to deliver expertise and insights from trusted FMH team members and industry experts. Each new episode will dive into new products, industry updates, and innovative solutions. Let's get to today's topic.
Hello, everybody. Dave DeCapp here with another episode of FMH Insurecast. As you can see by the title, we're touching on DC-related issues today. I don't need to tell anyone listening, a lot has happened over the past year. I certainly can't go through them all, but just for example, multiple disaster assistance programs, updates to crop insurance, pretty significant ones with the OB3, which was passed last year, continuing economic pressures, trade, input costs, farm bill discussions, so on and so on and so on. But we have the right person here to unpack all of these things. We're once again joined by Tara Smith, Executive VP for Torrey & Associates and the Crop Insurance and Reinsurance Bureau. We'll discuss the latest developments in Washington, where the Farm Bill stands, what farmers and agents should be paying attention to moving forward. And for those of you that attended our National Agent Summit last year, Tara was a keynote speaker there. And also, she's been on the podcast a couple years ago after the election as well. So I think everybody knows you, Tara, but for those that don't, would you please remind everybody a little about yourself, your role, a little bit about your background?
Sure. Thanks for having me, Dave. Always good to
bet.
chat. I'm a farm kid from Illinois. Grew up on a corn and soybean farm in McLean County, Illinois. Probably didn't know how blessed I was with that at the time. But then have been out here in DC for the last 30 years. Spent all my time doing ag and food policy issues. So have done stints with American Farm Bureau, Monsanto, worked for Senate Ag Committee, working on crop insurance and commodity title and disaster assistance issues. And then I've been with Torrey Advisory Group and working on CIRB issues for the last 13 years.
Gotcha. 13 years. I was going to ask you if you didn't say, because
It's
I've known you for a long time. You're a great friend of the podcast, a friend of the industry, a friend to FMH. So it is awesome to have you to help unpack some of these things here today.
Glad to do it. Best I can.
Okay. Well, let's start broad.
Sure.
We're just past the June 2nd primaries, right? And other primaries have happened as well. So we're really at a pretty good time in an election year. We're recording this, by the way, for everybody on June 8th. But if we start broad and go from there, what are the biggest issues right now that are taking up a lot of your time and discussion that are affecting agriculture that we should kind of be keeping an eye on ourselves for those of us that aren't in DC?
Yeah, I don't think this is going to come as a surprise to anyone, but I think what we're seeing time and time again on both ag issues, but also just general politically. I know it certainly played a role in the Iowa primaries, is, just the general economic situation, particularly in the countryside, is getting a lot of playtime here in DC, whether it's fertilizer pricing or crop markets, or we're talking about trading partners and tariffs. We're spending a lot of time in DC, and a lot of oxygen in the room in DC is being spent on those kinds of issues. Now, of course, coming out of that are a lot of different topics, from the Farm Bill that's meant to help sort of alleviate some of those tensions, trade and tariff issues. I don't know when folks are going to see this podcast, but here on Wednesday, the 10th, there's going to be a USMCA hearing in the House Ag Committee. We've seen New World Screwworm is now a hot topic, which we're going to hear a lot about in the Senate Ag Committee when Rollins testifies on Wednesday. But I really think a lot of it all comes back to the general economic situation across the United States, but really focused on the heartland and on farmers right now.
And so you brought up the primaries, you brought up Iowa in particular. And I think a lot of the discussion is going to be around I agree with you completely, and you're obviously the expert there. I think it played in a little bit to the primary for governor on the Republican side in Iowa, right? With Zane beating out Feenstra even after a Trump endorsement.
Yep. No, without a doubt. And, from a food and ag perspective, we're also kind of keeping an eye on the role that this Make America Healthy Again
Yeah.
dynamic is playing on some of these elections. In some elections, it's not a big deal. In that election, there were some interesting Maha dynamics there as well. And I think, writ large, as you look at this election cycle, you're seeing a pretty disruptive election cycle. Just in terms of the big picture, we have at this point in time 70 House members that are either retiring or seeking higher office. We have another 10 to 15 that have either resigned or passed away. Um, that alone is almost 20% of the entire House of Representatives that's going to be moving on to another job or not going to be in the House next year. So we're going to have at least 20% brand new faces next year after this election cycle. And that's without looking at the 18 toss-up races
Right.
and the 16 races that have been redistricted and are expected to flip. These numbers start adding up, and the start of next year is going to be pretty darn busy.
Oh my goodness, yeah. That with all the variables you mentioned, plus the theme kind of seems, if you take even John Cornyn in Texas, right, with Paxton, I think, right, he won that primary. Do you get the feeling, because it sure looks like it out here, that folks are looking for something new, not necessarily? I mean, is that kind of the throughput for all this, or the thing driving a lot of this?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think Congress isn't particularly popular these days. Kind of hard
You're
stop,
kidding.
right?
Yeah.
Polling numbers don't look good. If it were a popularity contest, they would not be winning. And so that certainly plays into it to a certain degree, right? Outsiders have a bit of an edge. A lot of times in past election cycles, what we've seen is folks say, well, I think Congress does a lousy job, but I like my congressman. And, you're kind of wondering if that's going to be different this cycle, if it's really not going to be more baggage for some of these incumbents, and fresh faces aren't really what people are looking for.
So staying on the topic of the midterms this year, is there, other than the surprising things you've already said, is there anything else kind of waiting in the wings that folks could be watching out for to give indication of things kind of tilting one way or the other, just given the sheer volume of races?
Well, I think one of the other interesting things for ag specifically in this election cycle is the changeover we're going to see in ag committee leadership.
Oh yeah,
So keep in mind, Angie Craig, ranking member on the House Ag Committee, she's running for Senate.
running for Senate. Yeah.
On the Senate Ag Committee, ranking member Amy Klobuchar is running for governor. G.T. Thompson, who's our chairman of House Ag Committee, is actually term limited out, right? They do 6-year max terms in the House. So unless he's able to get one of those sort of very rare waivers from leadership to continue in that post, he's going to be out the door too. So it's going to mean John Bozeman as last man standing,
Right.
in terms of leadership on Ag Committee. So I think it's going to be interesting to watch the Ag Committee specifics as well, just because that's pretty deep. It can be destabilizing.
Well, so is that then the focus of a lot of the Hill visits you make? I know that some were just recently completed, but even in the last year leading up to this, is that destabilization the kind of thing you're focusing on?
It is to a certain degree. I mean, part of our job is to look at a crystal ball that tends to be pretty fuzzy most of the time.
Right.
And, say, okay, we're always going to keep a relationship with GT Thompson, but who's next in the queue? Who else do we need to be sure has a really good firm grasp of what's going on with crop insurance and what's going on in rural America? Because they may be, waiting in the wings to take over House Ag Committee. So we've spent a lot of time this year kind of playing that game of who else could step in, and are they up to speed? Do they know what we need? Do they know what the industry does for rural America?
Well, and that's every midterm or every 2 years anyway. Right, you're constantly in an education phase, and it seems like this year might be, or I should say, next year might be, the monumental size education effort.
Yeah, I'm going to need some more comfortable shoes to make the rounds next year than what I have.
Right. Oh, brother. So where does shifting not shifting from that, but the hill visits and that type of thing, and then the other thing that's in the news, in the ag news, at least 2-3 times a week is the farm bill.
Yep.
Where's that, right? So I'm sure that's a topic of your conversations with the existing Congress, and then obviously it begs the question of, boy, if we have that many new faces and folks know that they're leaving, are we going to try and get one done this year? What's your prognostication there?
Yeah, I think, a lot of my peers right now are pretty negative and pretty down on getting a farm bill done. And it easy enough to be negative on a farm bill that was supposed to be done 3 years ago and still isn't done
Right.
today.
Right.
I will say personally, I'm feeling more positive than I have in a while, just because we have a little bit of momentum now. Um, you know, Last cycle, House Ag Committee was able to mark up a bill in the committee, but they never did take it to the floor. And this year, we've made it past that next hurdle,
Mm-hmm.
and House Ag Committee actually got a bill across the floor, which is no small feat. And it had a good number of Democrat votes. We had the fewest Republican votes against a farm bill that we've seen in probably 40 years, which is pretty phenomenal. So I think it builds a little bit momentum and, quite frankly, builds pressure on the Senate to do something and move a bill. Senate has said we could see bill language as early as end of this week. Um, and then we'll see what reaction is to that bill text as to whether they can get a markup done. Um, I don't think the way we get a bill done this go round is going to be sort of schoolhouse rock, kind of the way we get things done.
Right. Right.
I like to remind people that lame duck sessions after elections, that sort of 6-week period between the new year and an election, weird things happen. You can get a lot of stuff done. You can clear a lot of decks during that session if the motivation is right. And so I'm hopeful that if we get some things teed up and we see some action in the Senate, that there is a lame duck opportunity for a farm bill.
Gotcha. And partly for me, but mainly for the viewers and listeners, one question that continues to come up is, why do we need a farm bill? We got OB3 and everything done last year, right? So that still comes up. Can you explain a little bit about why the quote unquote skinny farm bill needs to get done?
Yeah. So OB3 was done through a process called reconciliation. And there are rules around reconciliation. Reconciliation is basically a way for you to pass a bill with only 50 votes in the Senate instead of the 60 vote threshold that you normally have. But in order to get that special treatment, you have to, every provision in the bill has to either increase or decrease funding, federal spending, and you can't create new programs. So it's very limited in terms of scope and what you can do. So a lot of folks will say, oh, we did the farm bill, we did the big stuff in OB3, don't worry about it. But I like to remind people that OB3 contained 40 pages of ag text, 40 pages of agriculture text. A farm bill is typically over 500 pages. So you have just left a lot of policy on the cutting room floor by doing a bill through reconciliation, including some things, by the way, that matter for crop insurance, like regulatory reform issues. Those don't tend to score in terms of the way they score congressionally. So those are things we couldn't do in OB3. We still want to see them get done. And so we need to see a farm bill to get those kinds of things across the finish line. So.
Gotcha. So, which is super helpful. And what's that term? Is kind of a bird bath. Isn't that how they judge whether or not it meets the qualifications for reconciliation versus outside of that?
I'm starting to worry you've been in DC too much, Dave, by the fact that you know bird bath. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
so at the end of the day, there's always controversy on whether a provision actually qualifies for reconciliation or doesn't. And so
so there you go.
Bath,
so then you have these other issues which are which require now, a full farm bill passage or your skinny farm bill passage, right? So in your back to the Hill visits and just the day-to-day conversations, either with staffers or with members, what are the things that are resonating most in getting a farm bill? Or I guess another way to put that would be, what are the things that are the hardest hurdles to get over, right? Because you're always going to have the SNAP issue and all the other things that some people push back against, or maybe they have their pet amendment they want to throw out there. But like, what kind of messages do you see resonating in your conversations?
Yeah, I mean, I think more and more when you remind folks that it's been
Since
8 years,
yeah,
yeah, it's been 8 years, guys, since we've touched a farm bill, and you remind them of how much has changed in the world of agriculture since 2018. Um, and that it's really a duty for the Ag Committee and for Congress to get a bill across the finish line. I think that helps remind people that we do need to get something done. I think they do see the issues on the countryside. We do have a nutrition issue,
mm-hmm.
right? This is something that was it was there were cuts that were made in OB3. They were made in a very partisan fashion. Whether those cuts are the best thing since sliced bread or not, as the crop insurance lobbyist, probably not my place to say. But they've certainly caused a rift. And in order to get a bill across the Senate floor, you're going to have to do something on the nutrition piece of this because it's been made very clear by Democrats that's their red line.
Yeah,
So
yeah, it makes sense. Makes sense because it is kind of always the case, right? That's always the push and pull and the tug, and people say, why not just split them, and right, and then there's obviously a lot of reasons you don't split them, and that folks that are maybe do have
yeah,
some critical opinions about SNAP still want to have it together because it's just the way the members are made up, right?
yep.
Yeah.
Well, we used to have this talking point. When I was on Senate Ag Committee, you never opened a farm bill after you finished it. It was a hard and fast rule.
Yeah.
You write a farm bill, you do not open it for 5 years. And basically, what we've seen over the course of the last 8 years since we've done a farm bill is we've seen it open twice. And we've seen it open twice in a very partisan fashion. We saw it open once for the Inflation Reduction Act,
Mm.
and a lot of conservation dollars were added, which folks might say was a wonderful thing, but it was still a very partisan process.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, a year or 2 years later, we open it again. And we're going to do OB3, which is also a partisan process. And we're going to do all these great things for crop insurance and Title I, but we're going to hit nutrition. So it's created a very partisan environment around agriculture that is almost hyper partisan to what we're compared to in the past,
Right.
because we've broken from this process that we've had for years and years. There was a reason we had a rule about not opening the farm bill.
Exactly. And we're seeing it play out, aren't we?
Yep, we sure are.
So would you say, I think folks listening would want to hear this too, as well as myself, some of the things with the urgency, I'll say optimism. Is that okay to say optimism that we could get it done this year? Don't want to put words in your mouth, but you seem somewhat optimistic, right?
More than most.
More than most. And but it's some of the pressures, the economic pressures that exist, like the things we've been rattling off: input costs, trade issues, tariff, so on and so forth. Do those help? I mean, helping is the wrong word, but do those help those conversations move forward? The urgency of the matter.
Absolutely. I mean,
Yeah.
100%. I think I was talking to someone who works in the credit world the other day, and they told me that we have not done major overhaul and updates to the credit title and to certain provisions around farm credit specifically since the 1960s.
Oh my goodness.
We are in
Yeah.
a different economic environment. Think about the economic environment that we're in today.
Yes.
If ever there was a time when we needed to review and update and right size those policies, it's now.
Mm-hmm.
So it's hard to argue against the need for getting this bill done. It's hard. It's
So
hard work.
yeah. Oh my goodness. I just knowing. I get tired just hearing all the effort that you put into it, let alone the amount of work you're doing. Um, so if we take it down maybe one level to crop insurance specifically, what are the key conversations related to the farm bill that are being had right now?
Yeah, I think there are a couple of things that, just couldn't be done in OB3. again, reconciliation rules, bird baths. There are certain things that couldn't be done. So, regulatory reform being one of those things. So, we were really looking for ways that we could help make an already very efficient process even more efficient. How can we make it more uh, friendly to farmers, to AIPs, to agents? And how do we smooth out some of the red tape? And so we think we've got some really good things in the House Ag Committee bill that do that. But again, we got to have a Senate bill to get these things across the finish line. And then the other piece that you couldn't really do in OB3, but we do in every farm bill, is there are certain places where Congress wants RMA to focus their research and development dollars. There
Oh
are
yeah.
certain commodities that they need help, they've got a specific problem, they need work on a product, and this is the opportunity to do all that. So
Gotcha. So it sounds like there's some those conversations are kind of conversations we would typically have in a normal farm bill negotiation, which who can say what normal is, right? But so is there, and there always is some amendment that's thrown out there when it goes to the
of
full
course.
floor, right? And all that. But generally, are members pretty supportive, or are there some like critical issues that may be thinking about a call to action for the folks
Yeah.
listening and us in ag that maybe need that little bit more support to get over the finish line?
Yeah. I think anytime a bill actually goes to the floor, we're always focused on playing defense more than offense, right? Like ag committees, your friends. That's where, and these are the people who know more about crop insurance than anybody else in Congress. And so usually you're having pretty good conversations with them and you're looking at making tweaks and you're looking at ways to improve the program. It's when you get to the floor where you're working with folks who urban districts don't know anything about crop insurance. And quite frankly, a lot of times may just see it as a bank to
Mm,
help fund their pet project or their priority issue. That's when I worry a little bit, is at the floor process and making sure we're ready to play defense.
yeah, for sure. And that's just it's fascinating. That whole floor process for anyone who hasn't followed is just absolutely fascinating. And then there's always some means testing and stuff like that that might get
Yep.
thrown in, or someone's pet project, they have some issue with subsidies or premium support, and they, and then they want to go and make a lot of noise about that, and that seems to
Yeah.
be the two things, wouldn't you say, that mostly come out of the woodwork, predictably anyway?
Yep. I think those two are very predictable. And on the House side, we saw it happen, right? The amendment that got filed on the House side was one that would have made farmers choose between Title I or crop insurance. Well,
Yeah.
they don't even cover the same, not even meant to cover the same risk in a lot of cases. And so tough choices for farmers to make.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So, so not necessarily wrapping up, but I mean, if there's more, we can continue to move forward. But
Yeah.
one of the things that kind of jumps into my mind is back to that call it grassroots action, or folks that what can we do to help make sure that this optimistic urgency continues to happen, right? And so that's kind of the thing I wanted to ask you is like, what's the best way to reach out? Is it simply just to write a non-form letter to your senator or congressperson? Right, form letters are great, but they see a 500 of those come in, and it's like, okay, well, right. So not that they're bad, they're very good
Yeah.
because they're usually well done. But is it more effective to write your own letter? Is it more effective to do both? I mean, what's kind of the dynamics of that?
I think doing anything is a great start. I mean, so many people I think are afraid to do that outreach. And you got to remember that these members of Congress, they work for you. You're paying their salary. They were voted in to represent you. You have every right to, send them a note, give the office a call, respectfully tell them your thoughts and your opinions on needing to get a farm bill across the finish line. Um, and that's what we're kind of hoping folks will do, to be honest with you. We're happy to, you know, burn shoe leather here in Washington, D.C. for crop insurance. I got no problems with that. But I don't vote for these people. They don't answer to me at the end of the day. And so it's always great to have sort of that grassroots input and influence, and for them to hear from you all that this stuff matters. It needs to get done.
Yeah, and one of the things, just put a my personal spin on it, that I was more surprised about than I expected to be in doing the limited amount of hill visits I've done, and that's mostly through CIRB, right?
Yeah.
Is how interested. So I'm currently in Des Moines, Iowa, right? So if we go see an Iowa member, they are intensely interested to hear from you.
Yep.
And that was a little bit more of a surprise. It's not like a formality of this is what I have to do. Yes, it's interesting to hear what people have to say. But if you're from Iowa, or you're from Kentucky, or you're from wherever, and you see your congressperson, especially if you went to Washington, they really seem to really welcome and want to hear what you have to say.
Heck yeah. They have
Yeah,
to put up with me all the time. It's a breath of fresh air to see you all.
yeah,
But no, in all seriousness, they know that you've taken time away from your family, away from your sort of day job to come and spend time doing the work that you do when you come visit DC with CIRB or any other organization. And so they know that if it's worth it for you to take that time, it must be important.
yeah, yeah. That's like I said, I always expected it to be welcome, but
Yeah.
the fact that as interested as they were, that I've got one of my constituents here, let's talk to them. So that's for those listening and watching, that's a pretty unique thing that I
Yeah.
was impressed with for sure.
Don't be afraid to reach out to your congressman.
All right, so one more kind of open ended question for you is like, so obviously Farm Bill is probably eating up most of your time. What else is CIRB working on, or maybe CIRB with the coalition working on to that we can help support, or that we can at the very least be aware of?
Yeah, I think one of the other things that we're working on right now, again, and it sort of feeds into this regulatory reform issue, and it does go back to a farm bill, but we've seen a recent rule out of USDA that sort of upended the process that we've used in the past to address questions about various policies. If we didn't know how a policy should be implemented, you went to USDA, you'd ask them a question, you'd get a final agency determination, and
Hmm.
then that was shared with the whole wide world. And everybody knew moving forward how a policy was to be interpreted. It was good certainty for farmers, agents, companies. Um, USDA issued a final rule right before the House Farm Bill went to the floor that sort of upended that process without a replacement. And so, what we're spending a lot of time working on right now, both through a farm bill, but quite frankly, through any means necessary or any path we can find, is to try to make sure we've got a way to bring that same degree of certainty for
Hmm.
farmers, agents, and companies back to the program, even if it isn't through the old system.
Yeah, yeah. I've heard quite a bit about that as well, and that is a major effort. And thank you for doing it on behalf of the industry, because it's folks don't sometimes realize the impact, the downstream impact
Right.
that some of that has. And it might sound good, at this high level, but in actual practice, maybe not the best decision, right?
Right. And we want to make sure, we want to make sure that farmers in, Washington state are getting treated the same as farmers in Illinois, as farmers in North Carolina. And if you have inconsistency in the program, it makes the program less defensible in
Right.
Congress, and it will create problems for us down the road. So we've got a great set of ag committee staffers who are really committed to making sure the program works and works well. So I have no doubt we'll find some solutions along the way.
Now that's good. And that you may have just answered my last question. It was going to be what is going on, right now, that might be behind the scenes, or that we should be paying more attention to, or that might be going kind of under the radar. And that's definitely one I think a lot of people don't understand, or certainly even realize.
Agree. I mean, it's a very wonky regulatory issue.
Right.
Most people go, "What? What do you, final agency determination? What does that even mean?" Let alone know what it does, how it's helpful. So yeah, it's not one we're out there shouting from the mountaintops,
Right.
because most people are just going to look at you funny like you're crazy,
Right.
because they don't know the underlying issues. But with those folks in the know, we're working it pretty hard.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's good. So So I want to ask you, where can folks go other than the call to action we already talked about? Talk to your member, or talk to your congressperson or your senator. Where can one go to learn more about CIRB, what you guys are doing, stay on top of that type of thing, and maybe get some updates, that type of thing?
Yeah. So you can always go to the CIRB website, cropinsurance.org. I would say that if, folks are listening and they're AIPs and they're not members, would encourage them to join CIRB. We actually put out a weekly e-newsletter for all of our members where we give updates on all this good stuff, whether it's congressional or whether it's what's going on in the administration with rules changes or just, industry happenings. We make sure we keep everybody that's in the CIRB fold and is a CIRB member up to speed on all of that stuff, so that hopefully, if you're soaking in things like bird bath, Dave,
That's right.
I think the newsletter has probably been a success.
It has absolutely been a success. I can attest here.
A good way to educate folks. And of course, anytime we have folks that are in town or in DC for something and want to just catch up, our doors are open. So we're always happy. Coalition partners, FMH employees, whoever it is, we're always happy to sit and chat.
Awesome. Well, before I thank you for donating some of your time, is there anything else maybe we didn't cover that maybe I missed asking you?
No, it was great. Always fun to chat. Appreciate it a bunch.
Awesome. Likewise. Like I said, you're very easy to interview. It's not like I have to pull anything out of your mouth, and you're so intelligent and know everything about it. It's a fun conversation because I certainly learn a lot.
In other words, I will talk to a brick wall, Dave DeCapp. That is what I have been told by my parents. So, yes.
All right. Awesome.
Always happy to chat with you.
Yeah. No, thanks so much, Tara. We really appreciate it. I know all of our listeners and the viewers on YouTube really like it as well. So hopefully everyone that's watching and listening learned as much as I did today. And, kind of here on June 8th, we'll see how things move. And hopefully that, would we say, urgent optimism takes hold and we can get through it and get a farm bill in by the end of the year.
I love that thinking.
Yeah. All right. Sounds good. Well, thanks to all of you for watching and listening. Of course, you can subscribe and like and all those things, and it'll keep us in your feed when we put out these podcasts periodically. So thanks, everybody, for listening. Thanks again, Tara, for joining, and we will see you all next time.
You've been listening to FMH Insurecast. We appreciate you joining us today and would like to hear from you. If you have questions about today's topic or an idea to share for an upcoming podcast, you can contact us at fmhpodcast@fmh.com. Thanks for listening. This podcast is intended for information purposes only. See policy provisions, terms, and conditions for details. Products underwritten by Farmers Mutual Hail Insurance Company of Iowa and its affiliates, West Des Moines, Iowa. Farmers Mutual Hail is an equal opportunity provider.